Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is an author, a mentalist, a philosopher, and an entrepreneur. His name is Aditya Pravin. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me on the show.
Ah, it's a pleasure,
It's
man.
yeah.
You might be the first Indian I've ever had on the show. Wait. Actually,
Is
no, no,
that
no, no. Hold on. No, there wasn't a second. Still, big deal.
the yes, even the second is good. So
So,
yeah, I don't know.
no, no, I thought you were going to ask me a question then. I was like, yeah, you take
No, no,
over,
no, no.
man. You take over. I'll take up the side seat now. Yeah, there's a lot of things to ask you about. I think the best place to sort of start would be how you became an author, because that's kind of the main thing you're pushing right now. I did try and find online. I couldn't actually find where your books are, what they're about. So let's just kind of delve into you becoming an author first, then we'll explore like what you're writing about. So how did you become a writer?
So it's kind of a weird story, in my opinion. So my mom, she works in training and development for companies, and she does trainings and stuff. So she has a lot of insight on how a lot of things, and she wanted to write a book about being a leader. And she had asked about to a publishing company she knew that I want to publish this so and so book, and how do I go forward with this? Because at least this was 5 years ago, so we did not know what it is to be publishing a book, even if it's through self-publishing and stuff. So she found out about what is self-publishing and stuff, and I was 14 at the time, and then she didn't know how to do it, so I said I'll research this project and I'll find out how to do this. So I went online and went through how to self-publish Amazon KDP and stuff, and I found out, and I was like, what if I were to write a book? What would it be about? So I was thinking, what do I know well right now? And I was 14, I did not know much. So uh, I was really into Rubik's cubes that time. And I was teaching people in my class and how to solve the Rubik's cube, and they said I was a good teacher. So I said, what if I write about this? So I figured out, how to format the book, how to even make the figures for a Rubik's Cube book. How would I approach this? And then I made the book. And then I got my mom to edit it because, I made few errors there, here and there. And then I went through the process to figure out how, actually to publish myself so I can get her book published. And I kind of surprised my family, like, see, I published a book. I don't know how, but it's out there. It's on Amazon now.
That's brilliant. Like, I did it by accident, guys. But look, I'm published author now. Nah.
Yeah.
It's do you know it's an well, first of all, congratulations. Secondly, it's an interesting one. Like I've published stuff before, self-publishing, and it's I think it's a tremendous achievement anytime anyone publishes anything, because a lot of hard work goes into it, and it's difficult, I think, to get to a point where you agree, like, I'm happy with this, I'm going to release this, here we go. You know, that's a hard point to just to get to that like level of that mindset, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a lot of stigma about self-publishing, which I think is unfounded. I mean, yeah, the ultimate is to see your book in a bookstore, or you can physically own it. Like, of course, I understand the appeal of that, but does it mean that if there's a non-physical version that it's any less valuable? I would disagree with that. I mean, like, for instance, I released an album in March, and there's no physical copies of it. I would like to do that at some point when I got the money to kind of put that together. Absolutely. But you can get it online. You just download it, you stream it. Does that make it any less of an album? I don't think so. The same amount of time and effort and work and commitment went into it. The idea is that, which is the important thing, the content is there. Um, yeah, where do you stand on that kind of debate? I mean, obviously you're in favor of it, but like when people say that, like, I'm sure there might have been some people that might have criticized it. Like, how do you react to that?
So nowadays you can at least you can publish paperbacks also now on Amazon self-publishing. I don't know if
Yeah.
you know that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and hardcovers. So that's nice. And even then, the bookstores are going extinct. The whole book, the phenomena that is book talk and booktube and stuff. It's all online. People purchase their books online now. So it's not that. It's just that I guess self-publishing makes the world a bit more special in a way. Why I say that is because we have this debate, and I'm really into film. I want to be a filmmaker sometime, maybe. So there's this debate that how many filmmakers are there that don't have the budgets to get their stuff, their ideas, their movies out there. And before, the publishing world was like that, but now, with the help of self-publishing, more people have access to get their stories out there. And you can eventually go to the mainstream publishing route if you have a book that they are accepting. But your initial works are not that polished, I'll say, most for most authors. And even to get that out there and get feedback on it from actual audiences is quite nice.
This is key. Yeah, especially from a commercials perspective, because um, part of obviously the benefit of having a publisher is that they will go through your work and kind of break it down and give you like pointers. Like for me, it's not dissimilar to being in the studio and working on an album, and the producer makes suggestions that will help your songs kind of appeal more, or at least work better in the flow of and delivery of the album. I think with obviously with books with publishers, you've got someone who's going to proofread it. Obviously, we have the benefit of having technology now that can help you with that. I still think someone should go for it though. I don't want to just handle that over to AI. I think that's the death of creativity and of all things. Just because it's there doesn't mean we have to fully rely on it. But yes, absolutely use the tool. Um, there's a lot of benefits to that. Is I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's a different route, isn't it? It's a different way of doing something.
Yeah,
Um, but I think it really does open up the possibilities because obviously the big problem with publishers is that it's all down to who they want to publish. Some of the world's most successful, most famous books were rejected like a million times. I think it was Stephen King who has like a letter framed in his study, and it's like the one letter that was the acceptance letter amongst the like 59 other rejection letters he got for Carrie or something like that. And it's just like, that's cool, man. Lots of people don't see the vision. There's that one person that sees the vision, and it becomes a success. I think there's an unpredictability level. You never know how people are going to react to things. Um, and timing is key as well. Like, if you take my album as an example, I published my album, I promoted it and released it in March. I released a bunch of singles in the run up to it. Right, I did all the promotion online, and I did like a sort of a mini re-release recently, but it's getting more views now than it was when it was first published. And I think that a lot of that comes down to, as you said, like reviews, people talking about things, especially with books. That's really important. Like how things are reviewed, how things are interpreted. Sometimes it can take a bit of time, a little bit. You need a bit of buzz to kind of get attention. You know, what routes
yeah.
have you taken to kind of promote your books?
I just promote it mostly. I have a lot of organic traffic on my books. Like people, my original book was How to Solve a Rubik's Cube, and people searched that on Amazon. So I got a lot of organic traffic on my initial books, which were all about Rubik's Cube and stuff. And I promote them heavily locally, to my friends and family, and I have ways to, spread the word around, and through groups and stuff that of circles that of people that I know. That's how I do it. But now I'm trying to do a bit more of this online promotion thing, like do going on podcasts, like something like that, and experiment with this. That how is this affecting the book sales? If I were to say how that affects. And funny that you mentioned Stephen King. I think I know the story of his rejection letters. So when he was starting writing, he had this pin on his wall, you know, and he used to just put all the rejection letters on them into a big pile on that pin. And he used to look at them and then write his next story, like with the motivation that that would not end up on the wall. And if it did, then it's the step towards success.
I get this when I get like hate messages occasionally. Um, the ones that really stand out, I make a point of like saving for later. Um, and like I think it is important to pay attention to good and bad criticism, whatever you get. Um, Negative criticism can be useful. Rejections can be useful. I think it's part of the, as you said, that driving force. You just keep going, you keep going, you keep going. You don't let things stop you. Because a lot of criticism will come from jealousy or come from just people trying to tear you down. People don't want to see you be a success. There's all that. But then there's also people just genuinely criticizing you. And sometimes you just have to take that on board. You know, when I started doing podcasting, I had some initial criticisms which got me thinking. Like they were delivered in a horrible way, but they got me thinking. I think about it all these years later, and whenever I feel like, for instance, maybe I'm talking a bit too much, and maybe my guest is not getting enough in, I think back to that comment, and I'm like, right, let's get it, let's steer it back to our guest. Let's get back there. And yeah, it's interesting because I remember at the time people said like, "Well, it's your show. You know, your name is on there. It's you can talk about whatever you want." But I looked at it like, yeah, but the person's criticism is that my guest is not getting enough attention, and you've invited a guest on your show. And I've also since been in that situation where one of the reasons I don't really, I mean, I don't get invited on people's shows anymore, but when I did go on people's shows to promote myself, it was interesting because sometimes you get a full on interview like this, a conversation. Other times you'd feel like a background character. I remember one show I went on, it was a group of guys and they were lovely. And they were having, it was quite clearly they've been doing this a while. They're just having a laugh. But I was like a background character. And I kind of remember thinking, like, what, why did you invite me on this show? If you like, why am I even here? Like, that's the worst thing. If you get to a point where your guest feels like, why am I here? Then you need to rethink it. But the point is, you take on board these things, you work to become better. That's the main thing. And congratulations, man. It's a huge achievement. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, how many solutions are there in your book for solving a Rubik's cube?
How many so I did the beginner's method. There are multiple methods to it, yeah. So I did the beginner's method originally, and then in a updated version, I added a more advanced method for those who wanted to try that method after that. And then I also added some reference material that they can go through for other methods, that is. Yeah.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? Like this puzzle game that has been around forever is still captivating new audiences. I think I mean, obviously, I put it online with it in line with things like chess, where it's like there's always going to be. I mean, I don't know. There's probably like an infinite a number of variations, isn't there? Possibly.
It's
Or is there a set one?
if it's 43 quintillion, and it's a big number. It's like 12 zeros or more. I don't know. I think
That's insane. That's think about how. All right. Well, the infinite possibilities then basically is what we're saying. Yeah. That's incredible. And it gives you more content that you can write with. So it's content for days. Is there any other like fields that you're writing about, or are you just kind of focused on this particular field for now?
so. Originally, that's what I was the only thing I was educated enough to write on. I could not add thing value to many other fields. But as I grew up, I have written more about other stuff. Initially, as a kid, also I wrote a book about Minecraft and stuff. That's been delisted. That was weird. But since then, I've written about cinematography. That was one book of mine. Then I've written on philosophy. It was one of my latest books. I've this year gotten into more into poetry. So I've released a full trilogy of poetry books and stuff like that.
Hold the phone, man. This is like a lot of. You're like, yeah, I've only just done all of these 15 things. Like, okay, all right. So, well, we're gonna get into philosophy later, but let's talk about cinematography for a second. Like, do you have a background in film work? Have you worked in film before, or studied it, or where did that come
No,
from?
I have not studied it, but there was this person I knew who wanted to write about cinematography, but they did not really want to write it. And I love cinematography, but I don't have the insider knowledge to do it. So we just kind of worked on that project together and we wrote that book. It's called Mise en Scène.
So, when you're working with someone and trying to kind of put their vision into writing, what were the challenges that sort of arose? Because I imagine that it's quite difficult in places to kind of put that to paper because obviously you're the one doing the hard work, right? He's throwing his ideas at you and going like, "Well, I got this idea, I got this idea, I got this idea," and you're the one who has to make it happen. What kind of challenges did you face bringing that
So,
alive?
so we just did an interview method first. I interviewed him on certain things, what I knew, what I wanted to include in the book, and he gave me the answers, which I went through the video again and again to kind of note down the most important things. I wrote an initial draft, then I got him to review it, tell me half of it is wrong. I took the wrong interpretation of some of the stuff, and then revision until the final draft is, he said is quite a good, concise version of what he wanted to get out there.
Solid stuff, man. You got to tell me about this Minecraft book, mate. Come on, tell us about the Minecraft book.
I just had an idea one day. I published it. It was about, different Minecraft seeds and what kind of different experiences you can have through different Minecraft seeds you can put and what is there to explore. This a set because Minecraft is such an explorable world. It was a way for somebody who wanted a more of a crafted experience that they knew this was there, and that is there, and follow a path to their journey through Minecraft. It was quickly delisted after that. I delisted myself. I was like, yeah, it's not does not fit with the rest of my books. So I just, yeah.
So you just didn't think that there was much. I mean, that's kind of a shame, though, isn't it? Like, you can write about whatever you want. Why do you list it?
Yeah, but it's also like self-publishing sites are quite like have become quite more stringent on how much value you're adding to what you're talking about. Yeah, I that's
Uh,
something, at least from my experience. My friend had some issue with it, so I don't even want it on my profile anymore, and I was like, I'll get it off if
hold on, hold on. So, like, who judges this? Like, so someone's judging the quality of the books you're putting out. Like, I mean, that shouldn't that be down to the readers and the sales and stuff like that? Like, I don't know. That's a bit off to me.
Yeah, people just get their account banned and all their books, gone or into the oblivion, vanished, and like the whole accounts.
Well,
And
sure,
I was
sure.
like,
If all of the books are like, I don't know, here's how to run your own crypto scam, pump and dump, and it's just like a million books like that, like, right, fair enough. But like, if it's just genuinely a person trying to put their stuff out there, and I, I don't know. I mean, it's personal preference, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
I might look at your books and think, that's trash, and then the next guy that comes in is like, this is brilliant. It's how do you how do you judge that? I don't know. I think that's I get having like a quality assurance thing, but I don't know. Like with something like that, like you'd need someone. Like, do they actually sit there and read the books and then make a judgment based on that? Like, because if so, fair enough, I guess. But I don't know. I just wondered if you knew if there's like any assessment criteria for this, how they judge whether or not content is good enough.
There is a criteria, but it's very vague. They go through a review process before publishing it,
Okay.
but after, if somebody gives you a bad review, suppose, and a really bad one, suppose, they'll review it again,
So
and that review can, yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. If a few people go, this is trash and this is why it's trash, and then they review it and they're like, yeah, it is trash, then fair enough. But all right, cool. All right, we'll put it at bay. We'll put it at bay. That's fair enough.
There is a
Um,
sim. there is a similar issue that I face with my books nowadays, which was not there before. It is now, suppose on self-publishing side, you're supposed to say if the book is AI written or not. Now, there's no point to writing a book with AI, but it's kind of weird because these AI detectors are not concrete enough. So what if somebody puts it through an AI detector, and I put in that my book is not AI generated, but they get a 40% certainty that it is? What then? Is the publishing thing going to do? That is the kind of gray line, the gray area.
I think it's insane that we're even having this conversation. I mean, obviously, no one wants to see these AI generated books. Maybe there's a few people, morbid curiosity. I get it, right? What would I want to see? If there was kind of like a series of books created where you used AI and it was like, okay, this written in the style of this, and you know that it's AI, then all right, fair enough. That would be interesting. I don't think anyone should pay for it. I think it should all be free. I don't think people should earn any money from AI generated content because zero work has gone into it. You've just put prompts in. Anyone can do that. Whereas writing a book, as we both know, it takes a lot of time and dedication and hard work and planning. The writing, like the planning itself is probably takes more time than the actual writing in some cases, but obviously it depends on the book. Some books write themselves, other books are, whatever. But with AI, I mean, I think in the context of writing, especially when it comes to music and films, even I've heard people murmuring about like, oh, what if one day there's a film that wins the Oscar and it's best picture and it's an AI script? I'll be like, fuck off. Pardon my language, but come on, that's not that's the death of creativity right there. It's what is that? Um, I've seen the same thing on YouTube. I think it's disappeared now, but there used to be a thing that you had to toggle that said, "Oh, is this AI generated or not?" And I'm like, but the thing is, you see so many creators actually uploading this now. Like you can tell there are for those who don't know, there are AI channels now where it will be like a fake voice that you can hear pretty easily. It's like a voice clone, or they've just picked some voice and paid for it on some website from like 50 different voices that are AI generated. And it's basically narration stuff. You can quickly tell because they don't have proper intonation and stuff. They at things. They don't have natural flow and delivery like a human would. Feels weird even saying that, like a human would. But anyway, um, and also like the content itself is trash. It's just all thrown together, and it's just very lazy. It's like YouTube content from say 10 years ago where people were just starting out before they actually made good content, except this AI. That's what it reminds me of personally. But in the context of books, AI books, that's crazy, man. That's
And
crazy.
because, but this is the dark side of self-publishing, is because of self-publishing, the amount of AI generated content, the books that you'll find have increased substantially on Amazon. You'll find so many AI books, and it's just disappointing. And as you said, they should take out the monetary aspect, and then no one will do AI books, because why would you even want to write a book just using AI? Just write it yourself. These people just do it for money purposes. They'll put so much content out, then they'll expect something will happen. I'll get at least this much. Somebody will be tricked by this, and they'll think it's a real book, and they'll get it, and that's just
There's
disappointing.
there's theories about AI that at some point the internet will just be like completely, although it's already happened, the dead internet theory, this idea that like most of what you see is either AI generated or just kind of yeah, AI generated drivel basically. And the idea is it will get to a point, and it's already happening, where there'll be kind of like a cannibalization aspect to it. So AI will put out content based on previous content that it's drawing from that the AI released. So it's like the snake, the classic snake eating itself thing. It's basically that. It's just drivel. I find it interesting that like when they initially let ChatGPT loose on the internet and got it to like formulate opinions and stuff like that, it ended up being like crazily racist and transphobic and stuff. But it's drawing from like chat threads and stuff, and just kind of like going in every which way. It's not really got any. If you give it no direction, that's what will happen. If you give it specific direction, then you'll probably get what you want. But again, it's just directional, isn't it? It's not really. I think there's this misconception that AI creates anything original. It never does. Everything it's creating, or let's say repurposing, I think is a better word. It's repurposing content created by humans. At first it just took public domain stuff, and then after a while it started taking like content stuff. I think it was, I don't know if it was Mark Zuckerberg or someone like that. They were testing a bunch of things out using content, like copyrighted materials, and there was a whole argument like, should they have to pay for that? And I think, yeah, but it's a tricky one because if they're just like testing out stuff and they're not earning money from it, they're just kind of training AI models, then it's a bit of a weird gray area because they're not earning money for it, but then they are looking to sell this AI thing that's trained on this content. So it's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, I completely agree with your assessment. It's people just trying their luck, really, isn't it? Like, oh, hey, I can just try and make a quick buck. Let's see what happens. For your average creator, it sucks because, we're trying really hard to make content that people will enjoy and that comes from the heart, that comes from passion, interests. I mean, you look at the books that you've created, it's based on things that you're interested in, things that you either have done yourself or that you've worked with people that have, and there's a level of interest and passion there that you just can't get from AI generated content. Same is true of AI music. There's artists out there that are say artists. There are people putting out AI albums, right? And they're getting harder and harder to spot. But eventually, that's people will just be listening to that stuff and consuming that content. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's scary times on that front. Where do you see the future headed with AI books?
I just don't know what to expect with AI because I talked about 2 years ago when AI was less popular on a previous podcast about AI when it had just come out 2 months ago, the original ChatGPT. But it has changed so much in just 2, 3 years that we can't expect how it is going to be in 2, 3 years. And what's sad is, as a real artist, you are now competing with so much of this AI stuff that it's difficult for you to get discovered, for you to get recognition for the genuine work you've put in there. And you're just in that, you're one single real work in an ocean of hundreds of these AI, pieces.
I will say one thing that is handy about being a human being and being able to prove that you actually do stuff yourself. I was in a live stream recently with other musicians, and it was the typical like, put your song forward, get people to check it out, review it, stuff like that. There was a guy in there who was a producer, and there was another guy who was a musician, and this musician had posted like or put forward like 4 or 5 of his songs to be checked out, and because uh, this streamer was kind of listening to everything in order, we had to listen to like 5 or 6 of this guy's songs, and it was like, oh, okay, fine. And the music sounded good, but it was very polished, very clean, which isn't an issue. But he said he did it all from home, and it was really, really well polished. Interestingly, someone in the chat who was friends with the live streamer was kind of saying he just straight out called it, and he was like, "This is AI." And the guy whose song it was like, "No, it's not. I can prove it." Da, 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 and it became a big thing in the chat. And the live streamer was like, "Well, I don't think it is, but I do trust this guy's judgment. We'll see. We'll see what happens." And we were all theorizing in the chat, like, and I said, like, well, I could prove that it's me. I mean, there's a million live videos of me performing my music, of me. There's a documentary of me writing the songs, you know what I mean? Like, and you could do the same. You could show like transcript. Here's the first draft, fifth draft, 10th draft, blah 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 blah. That's ways you can prove it. With AI generated content, it's like prompt, maybe second draft based on that, done. That's it. Just soulless. Moving it forward.
What's what's funny is that some of these people that use AI to what they call assist them actually think they're doing a lot of the work and just think AI is helping them. Like when I was doing poetry earlier this year, and then I thought somebody said they're the better poet than me, and we just for fun said, let's compete. Hannah, we'll write a poetry piece in 1 hour about death. Let's see who's better. And then I started seeing this person revisit the phone again and again. And then I asked, what are you doing? And then this person said that I'm just using AI to ideate. I said, okay, we'll move forward. Let's just focus on our piece. Later, when you revisit the final piece, what they've done is just remove few lines, move two words, switch them around. You're not really did the work. You just stole an AI's work, which is kind of funny.
That reminds me of like when I was at uni, and if you got lazy, we've all done it. I didn't do it often. I did it like once or twice. It's like it's 2 a.m. The paper's due the next day. You've left it to the last minute, and you're drowning in a sea of journal articles, and you're like, ugh. So maybe you start looking at stuff, looking at papers, and repurposing content, right? And you're not really stretching much further past what the original authors said. But you can't plagiarize for obvious reasons. So you have to reword things. And you do start doing that. You start like rewording something that's already been said in a specific way. So you have to try and reword the same thing. But the difference is there's a level of creativity in doing that at least. Whereas, and also you had to actually like put together like a theory based on this information. You couldn't just copy another person's theory. You had to put forward your own and use these sources and do it that way, right? With what that guy was doing, it's just cheating. There's no thought that's gone into that really, other than I'm just gonna ask it a question and get it to write me a poem, and that's it. And don't get me wrong, it will do a good job, but it'll base it on real people who have created poetry. And like, I don't know, man, it's just depressing. It's I don't know. I think AI is fun when it's used in a ridiculous sense. It's a lot of fun. I think it should be focused more on how it can help us with robotics and help us with physical labor jobs, stuff like that, easing the burden on human existence. Why is it that it's trying to replace creativity and we're still doing these physical labor jobs? Why is it not the other way around and we have more time to spend exploring the human psyche and doing fun creative things and letting the AI and the robotics kind of pick up the slack a bit? I mean, if you look at machines, we've always used machines to aid us. Like, we used to wash clothes, and in some places you still wash clothes on like washboards and like rinse them out and stuff, right? And certain parts of the world started creating washing machines, and then we just started using those instead. There's different ways to do different things, but the point is those machines existed to assist us, whereas I feel like AI exists to replace us. And that's kind of the scary thing. Because what's the end goal? There's always an end goal with everything you do in life, right? And I feel like AI, the end goal is to replace human beings. And I'm like, why would you create something to replace you? What's the point? I don't get it. There you go. That's your next book right there. um, let's move it forward. You say You are a mentalist. I should preface by saying here in the UK, a mentalist is a legitimate thing. It's also quite an offensive term that we don't use anymore. So when I say this term, I am referring to the profession. Okay, and we're going to explore what that is now. But I'd like you to tell it in your own words. What is a mentalist?
A mentalist is a type of magician that does tricks mostly propolis or more focused on the mind aspect of it rather than the cards aspect of it, which is what most magicians do, card magicians. But we focus on that different aspect, a different take on magic, that is.
Yeah, I looked this up because I was trying to kind of get my head around it, and I looked up like famous mentalists, and one example, certainly the UK viewers will know of, maybe America too, is Darren Brown, quite a famous one. Um, and yeah, it's when you look at his work, a lot of it's to do with more the psychological exploration of things, like how things affect the mind, which I find fascinating personally. I think the one that sticks out to me with Darren Brown was there was one where he like simulated a zombie apocalypse style thing in a computer game environment. He basically convinced this guy that he was in a computer game, even though it's real life. And then he did his whole. It was all based on um, using hypnosis and stuff like that. And yeah, he always was took a lot of care to not traumatize his participants and stuff. But I always liked that, and I also felt that there was an element of macabre about it, quite a dark element to it. I've noticed this with a lot of mentalists. It speaks more to that. Um, but let's bring it back to you. Like, what have you kind of discovered through being a mentalist and performing these kind of tricks?
I feel like so many people. First, there was this wave of card magic, and then people popularized it so much that even kids started doing card magic, which is fine. But then it takes away from the magic that this kid is able to do something. Then it's kind of takes away from what you're doing. So I said, this is the new thing. This is the new wave of magic. I started like years ago, and that was a new big thing. So I said, let me do this because it's more fascinating. Some of the things that mentalism can, make you experience as the participant of this trick, that is quite fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I did a film last year. It's not officially been released yet. It's on the festival run. It's about a musician. Oh, sorry, not a musician, a magician, and him recounting his younger days and kind of like the art of magic. And I mean, there's other bigger things that the movie is about, but a lot of it's about the magic of magic, right? And I think it's interesting magic in the 21st century because most people know that the a lot of it is trickery and sleight of hand and stuff like that. But I feel like with mentalism, there's a bit more to it, and maybe there's stuff that you can't really explain away quite easily. Um, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I feel, to be fair, I am not, happy with what some of the mentalists do to get their tricks done because people wouldn't believe what some of these mentalists do. It's I'll pull back the curtain if to say that some of these mentalists use a method that is called, I think, as it's is it called hard reading, hot reading. Either there are two versions of this phrase, and what they do is they stalk people to get information later to reveal on stage, and you wouldn't believe it if you heard about this, but people don't know about this.
Pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah, they have different ways of doing it. Like,
Okay.
depending on what kind of performer you are. Suppose you're a stage performer and you have gotten say 300, 400 people in the audience. You go through the registration list and you find somebody who you have a lot of information on by their name. You can find them. It's a unique name, suppose. Then you can do that. Now, I'm not a big performer. I'm not one of the big guys, and like Oz Perlman is one of the biggest mentalists. Now, I've heard that he has a full gang of people that follow big celebrities when he does tricks for them. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but some of the stuff he does is quite unexplainable, except if you put that logic behind it, knowing that he has some information that he shouldn't.
I mean, it's pretty common the whole questionnaire thing before a show. That certainly was a big part of the whole charlatans thing in America with psychics and psychics. But that's a new level, man. Like stalking your victims. Sorry, I say victims. Like stalking your future audience. I feel like that's crossing a line a little bit. But I don't know. I guess that's a debate for another time.
Yeah,
Have
these
you?
psychics also use the same technique for some of their tricks, and some of these, if I don't know if you know about some of the YouTube drama regarding these two people, Sam and Kobe is their name, I think. They are these paranormal investigators that go to different places and stuff, and they went to the Conjuring house. Now there was this big controversy that took place where the performers there, they are performers, they're not real psychics, are they? So the performers had information about their family that they shouldn't have. Turns out, if you search their name, the legal name, which they had to sign up on the Conjuring website to visit the place, if you just search up their name, you can get this information, and it's like it's on an obituary of a dead person. And why are you just? That's just unethical, immoral to an extent. And
Yeah, I
they
mean it's one of those though, isn't it? Like, and it's like journalists getting their information back in the day, and then how the laws became stricter, say here in the UK and other places. Like here in the UK, we did a lot of phone tapping, and like famously, people like Diana, Princess Diana's phone was tapped without her knowledge. This happened to millions of people, and there was a whole argument about it. There was the Leveson inquiry into it, and press standards and what's acceptable and what's not. And fact of the matter is, there just wasn't really any laws in like made, and then now there are. But it's like I would argue it's the same with that. Like, yeah, you're right, it is unethical, but I think a lot of people look at it like, well, we've got a show to make, we've got to justify this budget, so we're going to do whatever we can to make this work. And yeah, maybe we do things that aren't right. Some people, I know it's crazy, like just because I'm the same as you, I care about ethics and doing things properly, right? Like, for instance, I've had people criticize me about this show. Like, why don't you just make it controversial? Why don't you just deliberately be controversial? And I'm like, well, that's not what this show is. It's like, yeah, that might get more views, but that's not me. My whole thing is to get the most out of my guests, make my guests look as good as possible. And that's more to do with like asking the right questions, not about like singing their praises particularly. It's more about just, like you're an author, right? Best way to get the most out of you is to get you talking about things. Because then people are like, oh, this guy's interesting. Oh, this is interesting to hear. I want to read his books. Like it's a no brainer, right? Um, but doing stuff like that, like using unethical ways of achieving things, it's not for me. I yeah, it's not for me. I just don't like it. I don't think it's particularly professional. But then again, that's just the TV industry, isn't it? Like it's one of the many reasons I don't watch television anymore because it's all lies. I mean, the best example I could give, it's pretty common. It's not anything new, but I went to see. Oh, what was it? Would I Lie to You? It's a TV show here in the UK. It's a great show. Basically, for a half an hour show they film like an hour and a half's worth of content, and they'll do pickups, so they'll get you to laugh, cheer at things, whatever. Anyway, I remember in the show there was one joke that wasn't included in the final broadcast, but it was hilarious. Everyone laughed like crazy. It was, like they knew it wouldn't get probably cut in, but whatever, right? And then there was another joke that no one laughed at. It just wasn't funny. Not, it was just a bad joke. But in the final broadcast, guess which joke made it in?
The second joke and everybody was laughing.
Exactly. And I was like, well, that didn't happen. I was there. That's lies. But that's TV, folks. And you see it so much in like reality television, which is the biggest joke of all time. Like, I think it should be illegal to call it reality TV. There's nothing real about it. It's more fake than scripted shows. And I know that reality TV is scripted, but you know what I'm saying? Like, drama shows feel more real than reality TV. Like, reality TV is this weird, pointless concept. I've never understood. What's your take on reality TV? Sorry, I didn't think this would come up, but your thoughts?
Uh, you know, they're just trying to one up themselves, is what is, there was this controversy with a magician that happened on AGT just a few weeks ago, that they made up a narrative that did not suit the performance. They've got one of the best magic performers. I don't know him, but supposedly he is. And I watched the trick, and it's absolutely unbelievable what he does on stage. But they want something new. They've already seen magicians. So they make up this narrative that they're criticizing his pacing. And there was this whole take that they're just doing it because it's not been done before. A good performance getting red buzzers. They're just trying to create fake narratives because that's something the audience hasn't seen before, and that would cause controversy, as you said, gets in views, and that's just wrong.
Right, you've mentioned something that I'm quite happy to delve into and destroy. AGT, yeah, America's Got Talent, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So over the last 10 years, these shows, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, X Factor, which isn't around anymore now, but I think it exists in other countries. You're right. I mean, people forget this, but it's a television show, first and foremost. It's not a talent show. These are not talent shows. They do give people opportunities. That's true. However, most of what you see is manufactured, but it's manufactured way more than it was back in the day. Like they create nothing, like something out of nothing. Now they create moments. They're looking for the viral moments because look, let's be honest. How many people are going to sit and watch a full episode now? Probably not that many. You're going to see clips, and the clips will be repurposed online on like TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and that's where it will mostly get seen. So they're trying to create, as you say, controversial moments, oh my god moments, and it's all fake. It's all acting. Even the people that are brought in to perform probably sign up to be a part of it, right? To be part of that creating moment stuff. But there's nothing real about it anymore. It's so manufactured that it's gone too far the other way now. So something like that, a magician trying to do a trick and then getting all red buzzers, even though it's a legit trick and he's probably done it a million times and had success everywhere else. Yeah, 100%. It's just controversy, drama. Um, is it right? Well, it's a television show. They can do whatever they want with it. But I think most people are smart to this now. I mean, I think the decline in viewership for shows like this says a lot. Yeah. Also, to be fair, people just don't watch TV as much anymore. They watch streaming services on demand when they want. But you think like you can watch anything whenever you want, and people are choosing really, for the most part, to not watch shows like that. It's because they're not what they used to be. When they first started, it was yeah, all right, this is a TV show, but we are trying to find talent as well. And it was kind of a unique concept and kind of exciting in some ways. Whereas now it's like, it's just a TV show, man. And a bad one at
Yes.
that. I don't know, man.
So many
Um,
of those old shows have lost their magic as the seasons went on, as you know, they've used whatever magic they had, and they still continue now with scripted stuff, and just to as a cash grab method. Nothing of the original method exists anymore, but they still continue. And even some of the other shows, the drama centered ones, the Love Islands and the Love is Blind and stuff like that, they use, suppose, these uh what is the glasses you can't see through, and the food, they never show the food because they can edit things however they want in the post, to create drama where it doesn't exist, and the people will say that this never happened, that never happened, but you'll never know as an audience.
I won't say what show it is because I don't want to get sued. But Um, there was a show. It was big in the UK. They did an Australian version, and I was at uni at the time, and we were filming an advert, and we found out just by chatting to the film crew what the TV show they'd worked on, and we were like, "Oh wow, we love that show in the UK." Da, 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 da. And they were like, "Yeah, yeah." So we asked them a bunch of questions, and they revealed that what would happen is they would deliberately create drama between people on the show, and it's not going to be that difficult to figure out what I'm talking about, but I'm deliberately going to omit details here. So they would have these events together um, every night of the week, Monday to Friday. That's all you're getting. And like if there were any obvious clashes between people, they would deliberately pick at that. Or sometimes they'd create something out of nothing. They'd be like, oh, off camera, they would be like, so and so said this about you. Then they'd start filming and be like, what do you think about them? And then they would just launch into an attack on this person. And they've just lied to them. They've just told them that they said something that they didn't say. But they deliberately try to create this. And then obviously, when they have their events together and they talk, they're going to have a go at each other because there's this animosity. But it's when you're watching the show, it just seems like, oh, well, this guy's a dick or she's horrible. And it's like, no, but there's nothing, things don't just start out of nowhere. Something has to be the instigator. And of course, a lot of the time it was the people running the show that were the instigators behind the scenes, the puppet masters. And like so many shows have used that formula. It just sucks that it's like that, you know? Anyways, moving it forward. What did your role, or has your role as a mentalist taught you about life?
Uh, it hasn't. Yeah, it made me meet a lot of people that I wouldn't have met, and it's not done really a lot. I'm not the biggest mentalist that there is, but one thing it did teach me is getting over a failure is what it is. I went on a show to perform a mentalism trick. Kind of, I shouldn't have gone there because I wasn't prepared enough. But they have invited me, and I was like, okay, I'll come. And I performed the trick, and it didn't work. I had two parts of it. One worked, and it was absolutely a childish one. Like it was not that great of a trick. But the second part was supposed to be, the better part of the trick, the big finale, and it just didn't work. I messed it up because I hadn't practiced enough, and it was just, I still revisited that moment in my mind. But yeah, it was a learning curve that, to better prepare myself and how to get over the feeling that I felt then. It was a live stream and everybody saw it, and it was like, it was weird, that moment.
Would you say that was your worst performance ever? Is
Yeah,
it?
that performance wise, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, what was your best performance ever?
My best performance, mentalism wise, none. It's my books are my the best things I've done in my life, honestly. Mentalism is not really a thing that I'm that good at. Now I've become better. Still trying to learn, to be fair. Some of the more difficult aspects, like I tried to learn hypnotism, just didn't work. I'm working on improving in that aspect, but it's quite difficult to do mentalism well.
I'm sure it's a bit of a no-brainer question here, but like, are you planning on writing a book about mentalism? I feel like that would be a perfect fit, and you'd have a lot to say on the matter.
Yeah, I could, but I'd have to feel that I can add enough value to the viewer. I have to have some of these original tricks, if I can make them, craft them, and enough of them that I feel it's a publishable book.
What about if it was more about the philosophy behind it and the mentality behind it? You know, I feel like that
Kind
might
of
be interesting.
criticizing.
Well, just anything. I mean, look, you're into philosophy. You've actually been a mentalist, so you know what you're talking about. So it'd be your personal experiences, and then just kind of like, yeah, your thoughts for good, for better or worse.
I could consider that, but yeah,
There you
after
go.
next year probably. But I have so many projects going on right now that it's quite difficult. But next year I'd consider.
Where can we find your books, by the way? Whereabouts?
It's so most of them are available on Amazon.
Okay.
You search under my name. Some of the popular ones are Missing Sans, as I mentioned, the cinematography one. Or you could search, what is it? I've forgotten, I've blanked out. It is Love, Loss, and Living is one of my series, which is a trilogy of three poetry books that I started writing this year and just finished. Today is the release of my latest book in the trilogy.
Congratulations. There we go.
Yeah.
Um, well, yeah, do make sure to send us a link to that so we can make sure, like, when this show gets released, that we have a link to that. Because, as I said, like, I was having some difficulty finding you online, and it happens sometimes. Sometimes there's things that I've released that for some reason are harder to find. Like, I remember when I first released my album, you'd try and search it on certain platforms and it just wouldn't come up. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm there and I could find myself, but I had to really go through like 15 steps to get there. And I was like, well, it should just be there. But I don't know. I think that's just search engines and programs sometimes are a bit like that. But we'll make sure there's a link to that. Um, what has being an author taught you about life?
Being an author, because I am an nihilist and whatever, and I have a pessimistic view of life, and I find no purpose in it. To be fair, mostly, almost in a way, but writing is one thing that that keeps me going in a way. That it is a way to deal with things that you know in real life and help things in real life, and it's it's self therapy. I call it sometimes poetry, especially is kind of like self therapy, kind of explaining to yourself what you're thinking.
Couldn't agree more. And I do understand the difficulty of seeing the point in life sometimes, but I think that we give ourselves purpose every day through what we do. And some days it's better and some days it's worse. But, as long as you're getting something out of it, I think that's the main thing, really, isn't it? Connecting with other human beings. We're all in this together, whether we want to admit it or not. We're all living to fight another day, trying to make the most of it, trying to look out for each other. Moving it forward. So I thought this would be a funny question. So sometimes my guests reach out to me via direct email. Other times it will be via my form, and they'll give a breakdown of why they want to be on the show, what they're promoting, what they want to talk about. In in your little blurb that you sent to me, you said you regard yourself as an interesting person. What makes you interesting?
I completely forgot what I filled in this, and I was wondering what I had filled in that form. But it was a self-critical way that at least other people tell me I'm interesting, so I'm like, I'll mention it. People are, if it gets me a better chance of getting on the podcast, that is. But I thought, yeah, it's just there was no reason behind it. I function in a different way to most people. I feel that's my understanding of myself. And that's why I say interesting, because some of the stories and I have, which I've not even gotten into, like the story behind why I got into poetry is one, which is quite weird. And those kind of things are what make me weird, but weird things are interesting, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm just having fun. It's a deliberately provocative question just for a laugh. But I do think it picks up on a wider point that I find interesting because I've had some people reach out to me before and be like, I just don't know if I'm interesting enough to be on your show. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Every human being has something to offer, something to give. Um, the most important thing, podcasts, that your guest is willing to speak. Sounds obvious, but honestly, that's the difficulty. If you are going to come on a show that's a talking show and you're not willing to talk, that's when the show will suck. And you might see me sometimes in certain episodes where I've struggled because I'm really trying to get something out of someone and they're just not giving me anything. Rarely ever happens, but it will happen sometimes. And I think that's the bigger thing, you know. But yeah, people shouldn't be self-critical. You know, you've everyone's got something to offer, something to bring to the table. Keep that in mind, guys. Um, you mentioned it. Yeah, tell me the poetry story. How did you get into poetry?
So it's the weirdest story that there is. Everybody laughs at it. That's why I keep sharing it. It is that somebody else that I liked is quite into poetry. And she said, or out of random, I was thinking what I can do to, impress her maybe. And she said that, I'll truly know if somebody likes me and stuff, that if they write a book about me, in general, just a book. And I said, I'm an author. In my mind, this was in my mind, I said, I'm an author, I can do that. And I said, out as a joke, what if I write a poetry book for that person, mentioning it in third person? And she said, yeah, that would be a great idea. And I was like, this was January. This was actually in November, but I had this idea to truly go for it in January. And I was like, February 14th is next month, and I can do something with that. And I delved into the world of poetry, wrote an entire book, kind of in a way, which references her, but in general also a good poetry book, which talks about some darker thoughts also. And that I published it, and she doesn't know it's about her. It's those kind of stories. Yeah, I never went for it. Yeah.
Are you ever going to reveal that? You're never going to
She
tell
read the
her?
book. She read the partially some of the books and she didn't understand that aspect of it. Yeah. It was about her. She got some references that she was inspired me to write some things, but she did not fully get it. But what happened also is it was on February 11th. I found out that she has gotten in a relationship just few days.
Ah,
Like it was like then my ethics come into play and I was like, there's no point in it. But that's what happened. That's how I got into poetry.
what has poetry taught you about life?
Poetry, as I said, poetry is self-therapy for me. And I when I don't understand, I just start writing. Just as I think Hemingway said it, I guess. He said, write the one true line and then you'll get the entire story. So I just start with a general feeling and then I start writing. And then I discover something about that feeling that I did not know before. And these entire books are just me dealing with some stuff or the other. Like this first book was this, but the second and third is more about different stuff about the aspect of love. Like the second book is called Lost Lagome Love, which is, you know, uh, dealing with lost love in a way. Now, this is not about the same person, but this is about a different person, but feeling with those, dealing with those feelings, you know. I don't truly understand them, but I'm dealing with them in that way. And it's quite interesting, And then the journey of self healing is the third book, which is coming out today, as I said. And reference it with interesting things that makes me think about nature and the parallels of life. Like the title of the book is Assidious, which is the process of the snake shedding its skin. And it goes through when it decides it wants to change, then it does a whole process of separating its skin, and then goes or rubs itself on hard rocks. Its vision gets blurry, and then eventually that skin sheds and it's a fresh new skin. Those kind of things, talking about self improvement. I heard this philosophy quote from somebody, I'm forgetting who. Maybe it was, I think, Montaigne. I don't know. And he said, whenever you philosophize, you die. And that is kind of my philosophies of self improvement in a way. Yeah,
What has philosophy taught you about life?
that there is no purpose to it. And only dark thoughts, to be fair.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Just want to give you a hug. Come on, man. It's okay. No, I get you, man. I think every deep thinker at some point has gone down down this road. I've never quite gone full nihilist, but I certainly have had moments. I had a bit of a moment when I was at uni in second year, and I was just like, "What am I doing with my life? What is the point of any of this?" But I think the whole point is to give yourself purpose. Even if it doesn't ultimately mean anything, if it means something to you, that's all that matters. Because doing things makes you feel a certain way if you're passionate about things. You know, and like, yeah, we might all just die and it's for nothing, but like, we're here now. Do you know what I mean? We're here now. And everything
Yeah.
we do, that's why I live in the moment. Like, it doesn't matter that we're going to die one day. What matters is this moment right now. That's what matters. How we make each other feel. Did we make the most of this day? Did we have a good life? You know, was it a good life, or was it just not worth it in the end? And I try to look at that and make that the focal point. So, what are some of your more favorite things to ponder in the field of philosophy?
I had a thought. Now I'm working on it fully. It's not fully fleshed out yet, but it is talking about, like, I was listening to ridiculous theories, and that's how philosophy is, to be fair. Some of it, not all of it. Some of it actually truly delves into the human mind, but some of it is talking about what the world is. I was listening to the theories of Boltzmann brain, how it's a simulation, or it's a just a moment that it's a accident in the universe and stuff like that. I am delving into this theory of how this could be hell. Earth could be a form of hell in a way, through the forms of how a life should be, according to, suppose, if you have to believe religious texts, then how life should be, and we are supposed informed not to sin and stuff like that. But in the real world, it is almost even inevitable not to. So what if it's in our nature to sin, and it's our nature because it's this is an afterlife, and in our life we have ingrained it into our nature to sin, stuff like that.
I think that's a fascinating concept as well, because like, even if you are the most clean living human being of all time, there's going to be points in your life when you're forced to make a decision, and that decision might lead you to do something not necessarily immoral, but like something that goes against what you believe in or whatever. Um, and it could be because you're protecting someone else. It could be because you have no option. Like, okay, for example, context is key, right? So stealing is wrong, right? But if you're stealing to feed your family because you're all about to die, is that wrong? It's one of those philosophical debates, isn't it? It's like, well, we're going to die, so, and it's your responsibility to try and keep yourself alive, keep your family alive, etc. Like, we would all do that if we're that desperate. We would do that. If you had to kill another human being in order to save your family, you would probably do that. You know, I think we as humans like to think that we would exercise all options before we resort to anything. But like, this is why I find shows like, say, The Walking Dead brilliant. Like, I know it's just a drama and stuff, but I thought the real interesting aspect to that was never about the zombies. It was all about the humans. I mean, supposedly the whole point of The Walking Dead is to refer to the humans themselves. They are dead. Their humanity is dead, and you see elements of it where it survives. Like Rick, the character of Rick, the main character, is a really good example of this, because he goes through kind of like a metamorphosis in a sense. Um, yeah, he comes back through, and he's a good guy, but he's forever changed, and he's done bad things. They all have. They talk about it sometimes. They all, especially when they meet new characters, and they're like, "So what have you done that's bad?" And they're like, they either don't want to talk about it, or they're like apprehensive, and you can tell that they were forced to get to that point. There's a point I remember where Rick kills someone who's an innocent guy, but they were on the opposing faction. So like, he had a chance to save a guy, but he was warring with them. And it's like the whole classic rules of war situation. Like, what do you do? I can put myself in his place and understand that, like, he wasn't he did get some enjoyment from killing that guy, but then he also had immediate remorse afterwards because of how it had affected him. But then there's also like he's trying to save his community, save his family, protect people. He's been screwed over before by being too honest with people, and it comes down to like an us versus them situation a lot of the time in these instances. And I just don't know that you can really apply morals and religion and stuff like that to situations like that. We'll try our best, you know, the best of us will try our best to uphold these values. The worst of us will get lazy, maybe manipulate and use each other. But I think when you say like, oh, it's part of our nature to like, you know, sin or whatever, I think we're just going to make mistakes. We're not perfect. We are by nature mortal beings, you know, and we are flawed. And every human being is flawed in some way or another. And that's why when you hear people say like, "Oh, you're my kind of person," it's like, well, we're like each other, but these people are not like us. Does that make them wrong and us right, and vice versa? Who's to say? Who gets the ultimate judgment? You know, we kind of have to collectively agree together, like we like this, we don't like this, and that changes over time as well. What we think now and in 1,000 years might be totally different. That's why you see it now. Like sometimes people are like, oh, 20 years ago that was disgusting. How could they be like that? Well, society was different. People were different. You know, I don't know. It's an interesting debate.
Yeah, how there are no concrete morals. Morals change with time. The morality changes with time. And yeah, what we're doing might be wrong in 25 years, what some of the stuff we are doing. And then we're going to look back and think, why? But, it was normal in this time. Stuff like that. Yeah.
I think as well, like some things change for the better, some things change for the worse. Like I don't like how society is really aggressive right now when it comes to defending people. Like, I think it's good to call people out on things, but I don't like this whole walking around with a pitchfork thing, you know, and just like, oh, we're looking for the people, we're looking to like expose these people, this person. And it's like, look, everyone's fucked up, everyone's made mistakes, everyone's got some skeletons in the closet to varying degrees. Some can be forgiven, some are unforgivable. You know, I hold my hands up. I've made mistakes. I've messed up. I've hurt people. Does that mean I'm a deplorable human being who should never be forgiven? No. My album is called Second Chances. And it's, amongst other things, about this, about the fact that people deserve second chances, people deserve chances to grow. It's all part of the learning experience, the human experience. You know, you make mistakes to get better, but the key is the choice factor. Like, do you choose to be better and learn and grow, or do you choose to be lazy and manipulative, or do you choose to be just never change? You know, it's all up to you. It's your choice, for better or worse. I don't know. It's yeah, I could talk all day about this, but let's round the show off. I've got a couple of final questions for you. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but we talked about AI and stuff, and I got a piece of advice from an author, and he said that people use AI to generate books thinking that's the end product of the goal. That's the goal, that's the product of this process of writing. But that's not the case. That's the byproduct. The product is the improvement that you receive within you. You become the better writer. You understand something that you didn't. You explore something that you didn't. And that's the product of that exploration. And you lose that when you use something else to do that.
Fucking phenomenal stuff, man. Thank you so much. What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
Lot of people are snakes.
Ain't that the truth? God damn. Yep. I think some more so than others, though. Some people, it's like, you know, they're a snake in plain sight and you see them and they're not hiding it. Other people are more snaky, more devious. And it's like, you always get exposed in the end, but it can be frustrating, especially when they're trying to derail people or I don't know. Like one thing I've learned about people's intentions is that just because someone looks like they're supporting you and is there for you doesn't mean that they're there for you. They might actually be plotting against you. I know that sounds like really over the top, but a good question to ask yourself is, what are this person's intentions as it pertains to me? What are they doing versus what I'm doing? Whenever they make a comment, for better or worse, does this serve me in a positive manner? These are the questions to keep asking yourself. And then also, how do said people react when I remove them from my life? That's a big one.
Yeah.
Final question for you to round things off. I already know what the answer is going to be, but do you have any upcoming projects or final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I have many upcoming projects coming up. If I were to talk about them, one is a sci-fi novel that I'm working on. Another is an epistolary work, which is a novel in which you're not going into it as the normal sense that you're using the descriptive language. He said that, she said that. You're using something that truly exists, like the popular novel Martian is using transcripts from a video. I'm going to be using letters and purely letters to explore a story. Then I'm working on getting a few short films made, just with few of my friends, but they are truly great stories, I feel. And yeah, that would be my upcoming projects that I'm working on.
Best of luck with that. I hope it all goes well. It's been brilliant chatting to you. I've really enjoyed this whole conversation. Would love to have you on the show again in the future. And yeah, just a massive thank you, man. Real pleasure.
I was worried how the podcast is going to turn out, but it's been a great experience and wonderful talking.
Thank you so much, man. And to all the listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I did. Be safe, be well. I'll see you in the next one.